Our next section says to simplify, showing all work. And since it says to simplify, there's nothing for us to solve, but rather we are combining any like terms. We're practicing distribution, and we need to be very careful to make sure we're following all of our distribution rules correctly. One of our most common mistakes I've seen is not distributing a -4 to both terms inside the parentheses. So for problem 3, -4 gets distributed not only to the x, but also to the +3. So -4 times x is -4x. -4 times +3 is -12. Now this term in the middle we need to be very careful on, because that is going to be a -5 that gets distributed to both terms inside the parentheses. So -5 times x is -5x. -5 times -7, two negatives, remember from Unit 1, makes it positive, so that would be plus 35. Now we simply combine like terms. Well, I have a -4x and a -5x would be -9x, and I have a -12 and a +35. I know there's terrible differentiated shapes, but gets the point across. One's perfect rectangle, the other's a funny shape. -12 and +35, so I need to find the difference between the two. Keep the sign of the larger absolute value number, so that would make the difference between 35 and 12 is 23, and my larger term is 35, which had a positive value, so it remains positive. So -9x plus 23. Number 4, again, we're distributing. -7 is getting distributed to both terms. -7 times 2 is -14x. -7 times 3 would be -21. And here in the middle we have a subtraction sign in front of a parentheses, and some of you are able to distribute that negative through with no problem. Others I've asked to go ahead and put in an invisible 1 right after that negative sign so that you remember there's a numerical value there. And then we're going to distribute that -1 to both terms inside the parentheses. So -1 times 14x is -14x. -1 times 20 would be -20. Again, combine my like terms. I have a -14x and a -14x. So -28x. And I have a -21 and a -20, so -41. Number 5, now we're multiplying, distributing, but we're multiplying by a fraction. So I want to be very careful to make sure that I distribute that -1/2 to both terms inside the parentheses without making any mistakes. Now 1/2 is a very simple fraction to multiply by, because I know I'm going to take whatever's in the middle here and divide it by 2. But just as a refresher, we would have -1/2 times 12x over 1, because that would be my first set of distribution, negative to the first term, and then -1/2 to the second term. And then that would be -1 times 12x is -12x. 2 times 1 is 2. -12 over 2 simplifies to 6. So that would be -6x. And again, I'm going to do the same thing with my -4. -1/2 times negative 4. So two negatives multiplied together. That's going to give me a positive value. And then half of 4 is 2. So my final solution would be negative 6x plus 2. Number 6 has 0.25 times the sum of 16x plus 28y. Now, again, we can multiply the decimal times 16x and figure out that term. But since I already know that 0.25 is the same as 1/4, and that's going to make some of my arithmetic simpler because I know 4 will go into 16 evenly, I'm just going to go ahead and use the fraction instead of the decimal. So 1/4 times 16x would give me 16 times 1 divided by 4, which is 4x, plus 28 now divided by 4 would be 7y. And so that would be my simplified answer, 4x plus 7y.